This story begins with a wedding dress in a dusty church and a young man trading his future to save his family's legacy. It's a tale of Boone Carter, a rancher with nothing left to lose, and Kora Maddox, the mysterious widow he was forced to marry. They faced an arrangement born of debt, a town scorn, and a secret from her past so dangerous it would bring ruthless men to their door with guns drawn. What unfolds will grip you with its tense standoff, surprise you with its clever twists, and prove that the most unlikely unions can forge the strongest bonds, and that true courage isn't about being unafraid, but about standing firm when you are. Before we begin this journey together, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, share this story with someone who believes in second chances and unexpected love, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. The wedding dress hung in the corner like a promise he never made, a stark white lie in the dim light of the room. At 22, Boone Carter's future was no longer his own. It had been sold, bartered away to settle a debt that wasn't his to bear. The ultimatum from Sterling Rhodes had been brutally simple. Marry the widow Kora Maddox, a woman 30 years his senior, or forfeit the ranch that had been in his blood for 3 generations. Boone stood at the church window, watching dust devils twist across the barren plains. His fingers fumbled with the stiff collar of his only good shirt, the fabric feeling like a noose. He could feel the weight of the town's judgment, the whispers of desperation, the muffled laughs from men who said he traded his future for a mother, not a wife. None of them understood the vice grip of duty, the slow suffocation of having no good choices left. His father's failed gamble on a cattle drive had cost them everything. Now Sterling Rhodes, who owned half the territory and all of its mercy, collected what was owed with cold precision. When the man had laid out this solution, Boone had seen red, his fist itching to connect. But he had simply stood there, a coward in his own skin, and nodded. The church door creaked open behind him. Boone turned, expecting the preacher or a pitying guest. Instead, he saw her. Kora Maddox moved down the aisle with a grace that stilled the air. She was not the frail, withered woman he had dreaded. Her hair was streaked with silver, pulled back from a face etched with lines of experience, not weakness. Her eyes, a clear, piercing green, held a fire that made him instinctively step back. Her dress was plain but impeccably made, and she carried herself with the unshakable posture of someone who had already survived storms he couldn't imagine. She stopped a few feet away, her gaze studying him with an intensity that felt like being stripped bare. "You look like you're walking to the gallows," she said, her voice steady and low. Boone swallowed against a dry throat. "Wouldn't you?" A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "What we want and what life demands are rarely the same thing." She stepped closer, her words for him alone. "I know the talk. I know what you see when you look at me. But you know nothing of my story, boy. And I suspect there is more to you than a lost ranch and a beaten spirit." From the front pew, Sterling Rhodes watched them with a smug, satisfied smile. The preacher cleared his throat, Bible in hand. Boone felt trapped, caught between the ruins of his past and a future he couldn't fathom, with this formidable stranger as either his salvation or his ruin. But as Kora took his arm to lead him to the altar, her touch firm and sure, he noticed the one thing that changed everything. Her hands were trembling just as violently as his. The ceremony was a brief, 7-minute affair that chained 2 strangers together. When the preacher declared them man and wife, Boone felt the world shrink, as if he were drowning in a shallow puddle. Her lips barely grazed his cheek in a perfunctory kiss, but the scent of lavender soap on her skin carried a ghost of something familiar, a memory of his mother's garden before the drought turned it to dust. Sterling Rhodes approached, his smile cold. "Congratulations, Mrs. Carter," he said, his eyes shifting to Boone with open contempt. "The deed transfers tomorrow. Your debt is settled. Remember our agreement. Any failure to honor this marriage, and I'll call in every last cent your family owes." "I gave you my word," Boone ground out. "Words are cheap, boy. Actions prove character," Rhodes replied before tipping his hat and leaving them alone in the empty church. The silence was a physical weight. "Your place or mine?" Kora asked, her expression unreadable. I don't have one, Boone admitted. Lost it months ago. Then you'll come to mine, she said. But there are rules. Outside, she climbed into a wagon with practiced ease, a rifle secured beneath the seat. First, she said as they rolled out of town, I am not your maid or your mother. Second, my bedroom door stays locked. This marriage is on paper only. And the third rule? Boone asked. She was quiet for a long time. Don't ask about my first husband, she finally whispered. Some stories are better left buried. The house was a revelation. From the outside, a simple cabin. Inside, it held a world of contradictions. Books lined the walls, leather-bound and cared for. A polished piano stood in the corner. Surprised, Kora asked, noting his stare. I didn't expect anyone out here to have a piano, he said carefully. My first husband believed education was the only wealth that couldn't be stolen, she said, her tone closing the subject. Upstairs, Boone sat on the narrow bed in his assigned room, his head in his hands. The sound of a melancholy piano piece drifted up, its notes filled with a sorrow that pulled him to the top of the stairs. The music stopped abruptly. Are you planning to stand there all evening, or are you going to come down and eat? Kora called. Embarrassed, he descended. She had laid out a simple meal. You play beautifully, he offered. I had a good teacher. Who taught you? Her fork stilled. Someone who's been dead for 5 years. A flicker of fear crossed her face before she could hide it. Before he could speak, the sound of approaching horses froze them both. Kora was at the window in an instant, her body tense. Get upstairs. Now. It was too late. Heavy boots stomped on the porch. A fist hammered on the door, rattling the frame. Kora Maddox. We know you're in there. Open up. Her face was pale, but her movements were precise as she grabbed the rifle. There's a back door. Go to Miller's place. I'm not leaving you, Boone said. You don't understand. These men are here because of me, because of my past. We're married now, he said, moving to stand beside her. For better or worse. The door splintered inward. 3 dusty men filled the doorway. The leader's cold eyes found Kora. There she is, Mrs. Thomas Maddox. Or should I say, Catherine Walsh. Boone felt her stiffen beside him. That wasn't the name from their marriage certificate. 5 years we've been tracking you, Catherine, the man said, his smile cruel. Since you disappeared with something that didn't belong to you. He glanced at Boone. And who's this? Your new protector. I'm her husband. Husband. The man's eyebrows rose. How touching. Did you tell him about Philadelphia, Catherine? About the bank? About what you stole when you ran? Kora raised the rifle, her aim steady. Get out of my house. Our employer wants his property back. The money. The documents. Make this easy on your new husband. The leader's hand moved toward his gun. You've got 10 seconds to decide, Catherine. Then, Kora did something that changed everything. She fired a warning shot into the ceiling. As splinters rained down, she didn't threaten them further. Instead, she lowered the rifle and smiled. You want to know about Philadelphia? About what I supposedly stole? Her voice was calm, almost conversational. Then let's talk about it properly. Like civilized people. She moved to the table and sat, the rifle within easy reach. Boone, pour these men some coffee. They've traveled a long way. Stunned, he obeyed. As he poured with shaking hands, Kora looked at the leader. Your employer is Marcus Brennan. He wants his $50,000 back. 50,000. Kora laughed, a hollow sound. Is that what he told you I took? She sipped her coffee. Did he mention that money belonged to the Dakota Territory Land Office? That he was laundering it to steal homestead claims? Boone nearly dropped the pot. You're lying, the leader said, but doubt crept into his voice. Am I? My husband, the real Thomas Maddox, died investigating Brennan's schemes. I didn't steal anything. I retrieved evidence of federal crimes. She stood and walked to the window. Maybe Marcus Brennan sent you out here to kill the one person who can prove he's been stealing from the United States government. She turned back, her gaze sharp. The question is, gentlemen, are you prepared to hang for murder when this all comes to light? In that moment, Boone understood. This wasn't about stolen money. It was about evidence that could topple an empire. The leader's face darkened with doubt. You expect us to believe Marcus Brennan, a pillar of Philadelphia, is a criminal? Respected men often commit the worst crimes, Kora countered, her fear now replaced by a steely resolve. She moved closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. How much is he paying you? A few hundred? Is your life worth so little when he's stolen enough to buy a city? Do you truly believe he'll let you live, knowing what you know? Dead men tell no tales. Boone watched amazed as she dismantled their will with logic alone. The two companions shifted nervously. She's lying, the leader snapped, sweat beading on his brow. Am I? Kora went to a bookshelf and pulled out a leather-bound journal. This belonged to my husband. It details every theft, every bribe. She opened it and read a damning entry, complete with a governor's signature. One of the men, Jake, stepped forward to look. His face went pale. Boss, this is real. This has Governor Hartley's name on it. It's all here, Kora said quietly. Money meant for settlers, for schools and wells, stolen by Marcus Brennan. The leader drew his gun. Enough. Hand over. But the thunder of approaching horses froze everyone. Torches moved in the darkness. Expecting company, the leader sneered. Kora's face was ashen. That's not company. That's Marcus Brennan. The man who entered was ordinary in appearance, but his eyes were ruthless. Catherine, he said, his voice slick and polite. You look well. Brennan dismissed Kora's claims of evidence with a wave of his hand. Evidence only matters if someone is willing to act. I've ensured no one will. Judge Morrison is dead. Governor Hartley has seen reason. You killed Morrison, Kora whispered. Stress is a terrible burden on the heart, Brennan replied coolly. He ordered his men to search the house. As they moved, Kora struck a match and held it to the journal. One more step and 5 years of proof vanishes. Brennan's composure cracked. You wouldn't dare. That's your only protection. Or it's the only thing stopping you from killing us, she said, her eyes blazing. The match burned down to her fingers, but she didn't flinch. She smiled. Did I mention this isn't the only copy? My husband made 3. One is in Denver. Another was sent to a federal investigator in Washington 6 months ago. She dropped the spent match. The hired men, realizing they had been used and lied to, quickly backed out of the door and disappeared into the night. You're bluffing, Brennan snarled, but the conviction was gone from his voice. Kora pointed out the window. See those riders? That's Federal Marshal Bradley. I sent word yesterday. If anything happens to me or my new husband, they have orders to investigate you immediately. Enraged and cornered, Brennan drew his gun. If I'm going down, you're coming with me, Catherine. Boone moved without thought, throwing himself in front of Kora as the gun fired. The bullet struck his shoulder, spinning him around. Kora caught him, her strong arms keeping him upright as Marshal Bradley and his deputies stormed in. Brennan, seeing his empire crumble, turned the gun on himself. 3 months later, Boone stood in the sunlit kitchen, his arm healed. The house was filled with laughter, the secrets replaced by peace. Kora played a joyful tune on the piano. Any regrets? She asked, looking up. Boone thought of it all. Marcus Brennan in prison, the stolen money returned to build schools, Sterling Rhodes's sudden decision to forgive all his family's debts under the shadow of a federal investigation. Just one, Boone said, moving to her side. I wish I'd known sooner what an extraordinary woman I was marrying. He touched her face gently. Catherine Walsh was brave, but Kora Carter is remarkable. She leaned into his touch. Some stories have better endings than beginnings. Outside, the land stretched toward the horizon, full of possibilities neither had dared to imagine on their wedding day.